Hey YouTube, what's going on? Snowflarky's Emos here today with another deck profile. This is my updated Barrier Statue deck profile. Barrier Statue is the ultimate stun anti-meta deck consisting of these really powerful Barrier Statue monsters that all have an effect that says neither player can special summon except monsters of the same attribute that the Barrier Statue is. So, that limits your opponent quite a lot if they're not playing decks of the attribute of the Barrier Statue we summon, and of course two of any Barrier different statue of different attributes means we lock our opponent out of the game. So this is just an incredibly powerful stun deck that I've been playing for a long time. One of my favorites. With that said, let's get into the cards. Starting off with our monsters, I am playing 3 copies of Fossil Dyna. Fossil Dyna here is our best monster in this lineup. It's a 1200 attack monster that just says neither player can special summon monsters, which is incredibly powerful. Yu-Gi-Oh is built so much on special summoning that the ability to prevent that from happening makes, is a win con in itself. And 1200 attack makes this higher than the attack of the barrier statues, and it also just stops special summoning outright instead of only allowing one attribute. So we definitely want to max out on 3 copies of this card. Fossil Dyna also has a second effect that if this card is flip face up, you can destroy all special summon monsters your opponent controls, which is a pretty good effect to have in instances where you don't get to go first. Maybe your opponent's already special summoned some monsters. You can set it, make good use of it. It does come in handy. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Barrier Statue of the Inferno. Barrier Statue of the Inferno has got 1000 attack and says neither player can special summon monsters except for fire monsters. So if your opponent's not playing a fire deck, this card can shut them down, just as well Fossil Dyna. Fire seems to be one of the least popular attributes that I run into playing in my duel group, so that's why he gets in this deck. Of course, barrier statues always change which ones you're running based on what you expect to be up against. You want to play the barrier statue that stops your opponent. And in addition to that, for the last monsters, I am playing 2 copies of Barrier Statue of the Torrent. This monster's got 1000 attack and is a water. Neither player can summon monsters except special summon monsters except for water monsters. So, water, another not so heavily used attribute. It used to be that wind was the best, but we've had to make some adaptations. That wind, now that wind is banned. And water and fire always were the next best 2, so I'm just running 2 and 2 in each of those. I do keep a barrier statue of the heavens and a barrier statue of earth sleeved up, ready to side in. So, if you want, you could play one of each of them or, mix it up as you need. And that is it for the monsters. Next, going into our spell cards, I am playing 3 copies of Mage Power. Mage Power is a really great equip spell in this deck that just says the equipped monster gains 500 attack and defense for each spell and trap card on the field. This is a very back row heavy deck, so we're going to often have tons of spell and trap cards on the field, and that will just make our barrier statues have really large attack. I like this card over Moon Mirror Shield because the increased attack being permanent instead of just when it battles monsters means that when our opponent's board is open, our monsters can do a lot of damage, and that lot of damage is really necessary because with a deck like this, you got to close out the game fast before your opponent draws the few outs they're going to have to your board. So Mage Power, very nice. Definitely like having that at 3. Next up, I'm playing 3 Pot of Extravagance. We're not using our extra deck at all in this because we're stopping special summoning with our board. So our extra deck is just going to be card advantage. We're going to banish 6 of those cards to draw 2. And can't use any other draw effects, but that's not a big deal. So it's a no-brainer to run this at 3 in this deck. Next up, I'm running 3 Pots of Duality. Again, we're turning off special summoning, so we don't have to worry about the drawback of this card. Pot of Duality just says that we look at the top 3 of cards of our deck, add 1 to our hand, and shuffle the rest back in. Now we can't special summon, but that's alright. We can just search for a key card that we need. And last, I'm playing the 1 copy of Card of Demise. Card of Demise says that we draw until we have 3 cards in our hand. Now, of course, when we use this card, we can't special summon. Again, not a big deal with this. And at the end of our turn, we're going to lose our entire hand. But that's okay. We're playing so many spells and traps that most of it is just going to be set anyway. So it's a good way to reload on cards. Just a great card to have. If we could play more of it, I would. But that is it for the spells. Starting off with our trap cards, we are playing 3 copies of Dimension Guardian. Dimension Guardian is a great continuous trap for this deck because we target a face-up attack position monster we control and it cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects. That makes our barrier statues unable to be run over by battle, which is important to consider because they don't have a lot of attack until we get our Mage Power online, and of course it means things like Dark Hole and Raigeki can't out them, and as a continuous trap, it works more than once, so definitely a card we want to see 3 of, because we want to see this card to protect our barrier statues. Next up, I'm playing 3 copies of Phantom Knight's Sword, another great continuous trap. When we play this, we can give one of our monsters 800 attack and defense, and then when that monster would be destroyed by battle or card effect, we can destroy this card instead. So attack boost to help us do more life point damage and protects our monsters, another no-brainer card to include. Next up, I'm running 2 copies of Phantom Knight's Wing. Pretty cool card. It's just a regular trap, but when we play it, it gives our monsters 500 attack and defense, and that is not just for 1 turn, so that attack stat increase is permanent. But during the turn we do play it, it makes our monster, the first time it would be destroyed by battle or card effect, it is not. So just another good protection option to have in the deck for our monsters. Continuing right along, I'm playing 3 copies of Solemn Judgment. This is a deck where once we have barrier statues online, our opponent is going to struggle to find a way around them, trying to turn off its ability to negate special summons to prevent special summonings. So Solemn Judgment is just a good answer. We pay half our life points to negate a spell or trap card activation or, of course, a summon. So that's pretty nice. That means we can stop our Raigekis or Dark Holes that are going to out Fossil Dyna. We can negate the Imperm that they try to play on their turn. Just very good stuff all around. And the best part about Solemn Judgment is if we're ready to push for game on the next turn, we can negate their normal summon to just leave their board open. So good option to have. Next up, I'm running 3 copies of Dark Bribe. Dark Bribe, historically bad meme card, but in this deck, I find it pretty good. Dark Bribe, of course, negates a spell or trap card that's activated, and in exchange, your opponent gets to draw 1 card. That trade-off is kind of what makes Dark Bribe bad, because you're giving your opponent card advantage here. But in this deck, where opponents usually have just a very few number of outs available, the card that they draw into is usually nothing of value, and being able to negate the key card that would stop us right then is very important, because frankly, if your opponent turns off your barrier statues for 1 turn and can start special summoning, you are going to lose in this deck. So having something with Dark Bribe to prevent that is just great. I love it. Next up, I'm playing 2 copies of Jelly Cannon. Jelly Cannon's a pretty sweet card. When a monster declares an attack, you can target a monster on the field and shuffle it into the deck. So this is pretty nice. If they haven't negated your barrier statue effects, they can normally only summon 1 monster a turn. If they try to attack over your Fossil Dino or barrier statue, you just shuffle it back into the deck, removing it from the field, allowing us to attack directly and keeping our monsters safe. Pretty good card. Next up, I'm running 3 copies of Blazing Mirror Force. A little bit of a personal choice to run 3 of this. You could always side one out for a 3rd Jelly Cannon, which might be optimal. But I really like Blazing Mirror Force in this deck. When an opponent's monster declares an attack, you destroy all their attack position monsters, and then both players take damage equal to half the total attack of the monsters destroyed. This is pretty nice because it's battle protection for our barrier statues and Fossil Dyna, since they have weak attack. And what I like about Blazing Mirror Force is the destruction is not as bad because a lot of floating effects are going to get negated thanks to the barrier statues, making them unable to special summon. And that burn damage is super handy because it tacks on a little extra damage to your opponent, which helps us close out games a little bit quicker. So that's kind of why I like Blazing Mirror Force. Of course, that could be switched for regular Mirror Force or, one of those for another Jelly Cannon. Next up, I'm playing 1 copy of Crackdown, something I've been playing a little bit more lately. Crackdown is nice because you activate by targeting a face-up monster your opponent controls. Take control of that monster. Now, while you control this card, the monster you take cannot attack, but that's fine. What this does is it just removes a monster from our opponent's field, puts it on our field so that we have removed their monster, and of course, leave their life points open. So just a card I'm playing as one of the tests. It's pretty neat. It's pretty cool, and I like as a continuous trap card. It stays in the spell and trap card zone, which helps our mage power get stronger. So definitely something I'm just trying out as one of. And last for our traps, I am playing 2 copies of Heavy Storm Duster. Heavy Storm Duster is really good in this deck. I'm up against a decent amount of decks that are playing back row, trap tricks, and labyrinth and whatnot. So Heavy Storm Duster is just a very handy card. Target up to 2 spells and traps on the field, destroy them, and we can't use our battle phase this turn, but that's alright. If we play it on our opponent's turn, it's no big deal. So definitely a good card. If you don't run into spell and trap heavy matchups, you can side this out for just another good trap. And that's it for the main deck. We're not going to really go into the extra deck because, like I said, you'll never be going into it because you're turning out special summoning. It just shoved 15 cards in there for Pot of Extravagance. So that is it for my barrier statue deck profile. Overall, one of my favorite decks to play. It's just very nasty how powerful turning us special summoning is, and will definitely give an opponent a lot of hard times. I really like these protect the castle style decks. I know they're not very popular, but I like them. I'm the kind of player they're here for. So I enjoyed very much. Love to know in the comments below what you've done with barrier statues, or if you play a deck like this. I appreciate you checking out the profile, and I'll catch you in the next one.